Every night you do the same thing. You get into bed, you close your eyes. Maybe you fall asleep fast, maybe you don't. Maybe you wake up at 2 a.m. and stare at the ceiling for an hour before drifting off again. You've been doing some version of this for 60, 70 years, so you assume you know how to sleep. Dorothy assumed the same thing. Dorothy is 71, retired school librarian, lives in the same house she's lived in for 38 years. She has two cats, a garden, and a standing Saturday phone call with her daughter in Phoenix. About 2 years ago, Dorothy started having trouble with her memory. Small things at first. She'd walk into the kitchen and forget why she came in. She'd repeat herself in conversation and not realize it until she saw the look on her daughter's face. She started leaving sticky notes everywhere on the stove, on the medicine cabinet, on the door. She mentioned it to her doctor at her annual checkup. He said, Dorothy, you're 71. This is very normal. And that was it. She drove home, pulled into the driveway, and sat in the car for a long time because she knew something was wrong. She just didn't know what it was. And her doctor had just told her, in the kindest possible way, to stop worrying about it. She didn't stop worrying about it, she just stopped talking about it. My name is Dr. Qalb. I'm a cardiologist. I've been practicing for 32 years, and I have sat across from patients like Dorothy more times than I can count. Patients whose brains were being quietly damaged by something completely fixable, while everyone around them chalked it up to aging. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly what that thing is, and I'm going to tell you what Dorothy's doctor never got to say. Here's what the research actually shows. Studies estimate that somewhere between 50 and 70% of adults over 65 have at least one significant sleep disorder, and most of them have no idea. Not insomnia, something else, something that doesn't keep you awake, something that happens while you think you're sleeping just fine. I want you to do one thing right now before you keep watching. Drop your age in the comments, just your age, nothing else. Because what I'm about to explain affects people differently depending on where you are in your 60s versus your 70s. And when I see those numbers, I know exactly which part of this video matters most to you. And if you want real answers, not talk to your doctor, and not it's probably just aging, subscribe right now. I publish every week for people who deserve to actually understand what's happening inside their own bodies. By the end of this video, you're going to know the one sleep mistake. But here's what I want you to stay for. The question most people ask, am I getting enough sleep, is the wrong question entirely. The right question is something nobody ever asks. And once I tell you what it is, you will never think about sleep the same way again. Section 1, the night crew. Think about your house at night. You go to bed, you turn off the lights, and for the next several hours, the house looks quiet from the outside. But inside, the dishwasher is running, the water heater is refilling, the HVAC is cycling, the refrigerator compressor kicks on and off. Your brain is the same way. When you sleep, it doesn't shut down. It shifts into maintenance mode. It runs its night crew. That night crew has a very specific job, clearing out metabolic waste products that build up during the day while your brain is working. One of those waste products is a protein called amyloid beta. You may have heard of it. It's the same protein that accumulates in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. Your brain produces amyloid beta all day long, and every night while you sleep, your brain's waste clearance system, called the glymphatic system, flushes it out. Think of it like a drainage system. Every night, the drains open up and clear the pipes. But here's the piece nobody explains. The glymphatic system only works during deep sleep, not light sleep, not the kind of half dozing where you're aware of every sound in the house. Deep sleep. The slow, heavy brick wall sleep that most people over 60 are getting dramatically less of and don't realize it. When you don't get enough deep sleep, the drains don't open all the way. The waste stays in the pipes, night after night, month after month, year after year. Section 2, the thief that steals while you sleep. Here's why this matters more than almost anything else in this video. The sleep mistake I'm talking about is not going to bed too late. It's not looking at your phone before bed, though that doesn't help. It's not even the most common one people assume, insomnia. The single most common, most underdiagnosed, most quietly destructive sleep problem in adults over 60 is obstructive sleep apnea. And here's the working class analogy I want you to hold on to. Imagine your airway is a garden hose. When you're young, that hose is stiff. It holds its shape. Air flows through it all night without interruption. As you age, the muscles around that hose relax. The hose starts to kink. Sometimes it collapses almost completely. When that happens, your body's oxygen supply drops. Your brain detects it. It sends an emergency signal: wake up, wake up, wake up, and you rouse just enough to restore airflow. You don't fully wake up, you don't remember it, but it can happen dozens of times an hour, sometimes more than 100. Every single one of those micro arousals yanks you out of deep sleep. Every single one means the night crew doesn't finish the job. And every single night that happens, a little more amyloid beta stays behind in the pipes. Section 3: the numbers nobody shows you. Here's the piece that should be in every doctor's office but usually isn't. Studies show that people with untreated obstructive sleep apnea have a significantly higher risk of developing dementia. Some research suggests the risk is nearly twice as high compared to people without it. That's not a small number. And what makes this particularly relevant to people in their 60s and 70s is that the symptoms of sleep apnea in older adults are different from what you see in younger patients. In a 45-year-old man, sleep apnea looks obvious: loud snoring, gasping, his wife is sleeping in the guest room. In a 71-year-old woman like Dorothy, it can be almost silent: fragmented sleep, morning headaches she chalks up to sinuses, daytime fatigue she assumes is just getting older, a memory that seems to be slipping. The clues are quiet, and everyone, the doctor, the family, the patient, agrees to explain them away. Let me tell you about Walter. Walter is 74, retired machinist, spent 35 years in a plant that made auto parts. He's hard of hearing in his left ear from the floor noise, and he still gets up at 5:15 every morning out of pure habit. About 3 years ago, Walter started waking up with headaches almost every day. His wife said he seemed foggy in the mornings. He'd pour his coffee and then stand at the kitchen counter and just stare out the window for a few minutes, not talking. Walter figured it was blood pressure, or maybe he needed new glasses, or maybe it was the weather. He didn't mention it to his doctor for 8 months. And here's what was actually happening: Walter had moderate obstructive sleep apnea. He was stopping breathing roughly 22 times an hour. Each time his blood oxygen dropped. Each time his brain fired off a stress response, releasing cortisol, spiking his heart rate just to keep him breathing. He was waking up every single morning with the physiological residue of a night spent in a state of low grade emergency. The headaches weren't from blood pressure, they were from carbon dioxide buildup during the apnea episodes. The fog wasn't age, it was oxygen deprivation, repeated across 8 months of nights. When Walter's daughter finally pushed him to mention it, and I want to come back to what she said because it matters, his doctor ordered a sleep study. He had a CPAP within 3 weeks. 6 weeks after that, the headaches were gone. He told me, I thought this was just what getting older felt like. It wasn't. Now I want to tell you about Margaret. Margaret is 68. She sang in a church choir for 22 years. She retired from teaching second grade, and she is, by her own description, not a complainer. For almost 2 years, Margaret had been struggling with word finding. That specific thing where the word you want is right there and then it's just gone. She'd be mid sentence and she'd have to stop and wait for her brain to catch up. She mentioned it to her son during a holiday visit. He said, Mom, you're 68. Everyone forgets words. I forget words. And so Margaret filed it away, decided it was normal, decided it was age. What nobody, not her son, not her, had put together was this: Margaret had gained about 12 pounds over the previous 3 years. Not dramatic, happens to most people. But weight gain, even modest weight gain, can change the muscle tone and tissue distribution around the airway. It can take a person who never had any sleep issues and quietly tip them into sleep apnea territory. Margaret's word finding wasn't early Alzheimer's. Her lymphatic system wasn't running properly. The night crew was being interrupted 18 times an hour, and the amyloid clearance that should have been happening wasn't. She mentioned the word finding to her doctor. He was thorough. He referred her for a sleep study, mild to moderate apnea. She started CPAP therapy. At her 4 month follow up, she told me, "My words are back. I didn't even realize how bad it had gotten until it started getting better." Her son still thinks she was just nervous about getting older. I need to pause everything else and tell you this. If you snore, even sometimes, even mildly, and you are over 60, you need a sleep study. Not eventually, not at your next checkup, whenever that happens to be. You need to ask for one, by name, this week. Because here's what sleep apnea does that most people don't know. It doesn't just affect your brain, it raises your blood pressure, it strains your heart, it increases your risk of atrial fibrillation, which is the most common heart rhythm disorder I treat. It makes diabetes harder to control. It accelerates cognitive decline. Never assume that because you fall asleep easily, you're sleeping well. Those are two completely different things. And never let anyone, a family member, a doctor, anyone, tell you that fatigue, morning fog, or memory slippage is just aging until sleep apnea has been ruled out. These are not the same thing. And the difference matters enormously. Now, let me tell you about Frank. Frank is 66. He worked in logistics his whole career, managing shipments for a regional grocery chain. He retired 2 years ago, and when he retired, he decided to get serious about his health. He started taking melatonin every night, 5 milligrams. He read it was natural and safe and good for sleep. He also started a new blood pressure medication around the same time. About 6 weeks in, Frank started having vivid, disturbing dreams. He'd wake up at 3 a.m., heart pounding, completely disoriented. He thought his blood pressure medication was causing psychosis. He thought something was very wrong with him. He came into my office looking genuinely frightened. Here's what was actually happening. Higher doses of melatonin, particularly in adults over 60, whose bodies process it more slowly, can dramatically increase REM sleep density. That means more vivid dreams, more emotional intensity during sleep, more nighttime waking. Frank's blood pressure medication had nothing to do with it. The melatonin was doing it. The natural health store helps you sleep supplement that nobody had ever told him to mention to his doctor. We cut his dose to zero point 0.5 milligrams. The nightmare stopped within a week. Here's what I want you to take from Frank's story. Anything new you add to your daily routine, a supplement, a vitamin, a sleep aid, a healthy habit, is worth a quick mention at your next appointment. Not because it's probably dangerous, but because your doctor can only see the full picture if you give them all the pieces. So, the question the title of this video implied: what is the one sleep mistake destroying your brain after 60? And the short answer is not getting enough deep, uninterrupted sleep, most often because of undiagnosed sleep apnea, that's preventing your brain's waste clearance system from running properly. That's a real answer. It's a correct answer. But notice what it still doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell you whether you have sleep apnea. It doesn't tell you how severe it might be. It doesn't tell you whether CPAP is the right treatment for you or whether there are alternatives or how long it takes to see improvement. Those answers don't live in the question, "Am I getting enough sleep?" The right question, the one I want you to carry out of this video, is this: is my sleep actually doing what sleep is supposed to do? Not duration, quality, function. Because here's the truth that doesn't fit on a sleep tracker or a smartwatch dashboard. A safe night's sleep is not a property of how many hours you logged. It is the relationship between your airway, your oxygen levels, your sleep architecture, and your brain's ability to complete the work it was designed to do every single night. That relationship is worth knowing about. Return to Dorothy. Dorothy sat in that driveway for a long time. Then she went inside, made herself a cup of tea, and called her daughter in Phoenix. She didn't tell her what the doctor said. She just said she was tired. Her daughter said she sounded tired. They talked for 45 minutes about nothing important, and when they hung up, Dorothy felt a little better. But the sticky notes kept multiplying. About 8 months later, Dorothy's daughter came to visit. And one morning, after watching her mother stand in the kitchen and forget what she was doing 3 times in an hour, she said, Mom, I want you to see someone about sleep. Not memory, sleep. Because her daughter had watched this video, or something like it. Dorothy got a sleep study. She had moderate sleep apnea, 26 events per hour. She had almost certainly had it for years, quietly progressing, quietly undermining her glymphatic system, quietly letting the amyloid accumulate. She started CPAP. Within 2 months, the sticky notes started coming down. Not all of them, but some. She called her daughter after the first morning she woke up and didn't feel like she was moving through fog. She said, I spent 3 years terrified that I was losing my mind. Nobody ever asked me how I was sleeping. She told her neighbor across the street, who was also having memory issues. Her neighbor got a sleep study, also had apnea. This is how it spreads, not the apnea, the knowing. So here's what I want you to do right now. Drop your age in the comments below, just the number. Because the way sleep apnea presents at 63 is different from how it shows up at 74. And I want to know where you are so I can keep making the videos that matter to you specifically. And before your next night of sleep, before you close your eyes tonight, carry this question with you. Is my sleep actually doing what sleep is supposed to do? Or am I just lying in the dark, assuming that means the same thing? Subscribe so you never miss the conversation your health deserves. Because I don't want you to be the person sitting in the driveway, or gripping the counter waiting for your word to come back, or waking up at 3 a.m. convinced something is very, very wrong. I want you to have the answer before the fear. I'm Dr. Qalb. I'll see you in the next one.